I think it's an understatement when I say that if you're able to absorb this entire thing, you're having a very bright career, right? No one is going to stop you, right? I mean, you're going to be unstoppable, right? So hello everyone, welcome back to another video. This video is going to be the first and most important video of my new series, which is going to be on Learn by Doing. And this series is not the part of the bootcamp that we are doing or the web development course that we are building or anything like that. And this not just this video, but the series is going to be different from what we usually see on my channel. So without diving into, what Learn by Doing is and things like that, I would first like to explain why exactly am I doing this series. So I a lot of times a lot of students, a lot of you ask me these questions that especially after watching my introductory video of my channel or my roadmap, you guys ask me that, Apoorv, how were you, without a college degree or without anything, how were you able to learn all these technologies? How are you able to grow so fast in such a short amount of time? How you were able to earn up to 1 lakh rupees every month, in just 1 year of your journey without any college degree, without anything. So a lot of you, ask these questions to me, and not just me. I'm sure that a lot of you ask these questions to a lot of, creators who are out there. A lot of you, ask these questions on Twitter Spaces, in comment sections, in Discord, and whatever place you find to ask these questions. So I think the main answer that anyone would give you for these questions, right, is that you should learn by doing, right? So that is the common answer that you get, and it applies to all the questions that you ask, no matter whatever the question is. How are you able to grow so fast? That's one question. Should I learn this technology or that technology? That's another. Or how do I learn quickly? I'm stuck in tutorial hell. I don't know if I should learn from tutorials, if I should learn from video, or things like that. I'm a student and I need to get a job fast. How do I, approach? How do I learn quickly in 6 months? How do I learn quickly in 3 months? Things like that. How exactly, should I build projects? What type of project should I build as a beginner? There are a lot of questions, right? And like all of these questions in one way or the another lead to the same answer of how to learn by doing, right? So I decided, I mean, in one of my Discord hangout events that I usually do in my community, one of the students asked me uh, this question, right, about how to learn a new technology. They were trying to learn a new technology through documentations, through tutorials, and they were not able to follow through, and they were not able to learn properly and to implement those skills in real life. So they asked me this question, and I like explained to them. I took a good half an hour to explain it to them how they can, for their specific use case, how they can, learn by doing and things like that. I broke it down into smaller pieces and things like that. So that's when I got the idea of the series, and that's when I decided that I'm going to, create the series just to help everyone out there, right? So I mean, with that being said, I would also like to point out the agenda of this entire series, right? So I see that most of the people out there, this is an ever-growing question for everyone, right? I mean, students don't know, students in today's time, they don't know the fine line between, how to stop learning like a student and actually learn like a professional, right? I mean, there's a massive difference when you talk about a student, trying to learn a technology versus a professional, an engineer who is trying to learn a technology, right? An engineer is much faster, they're much experienced and things like that. And in process, they learn quickly, right? As compared to students, because students don't know where to start from and things like that. So the entire agenda or the entire ideology behind creating this entire series is is simply because I want you to, think like engineers, right? I want you to approach any problem that is in front of you as an engineer, right? You shouldn't be a student, you shouldn't act like a student. I mean, at the end of the day, you are a student, even I am a student. Always keep learning. So don't take me out of context here. But what I mean to say is that until and unless you start approaching any problem, you start solving any problem as an engineer, and you start thinking like an engineer, your mindset becomes like an engineer. Until and unless that happens, you would never, feel confident about yourself, right? You'll never feel confident that I can learn something new quickly, I can build something, things like that, right? And that is one of the key skills for any software engineer or any professional, any good software engineer that is out there, right? So the entire agenda behind this series is to help you transcend from being a student to being a professional, right? Like to be a professional, to change your approach about everything, the way you think, the way you process information, the way you learn, right? So this series, I mean, in this series, I'm not going to teach you any particular tech stack or anything, but I'm just going to teach you how to learn, right? And I'm going to learn myself with you guys. I'm going to show you how I usually learn stuff and things like that. And the way this series is going to be is that in this video particularly, I'm going to talk about what exactly is learn by doing, and then I'm going to share some steps about how you can learn by doing, and then I'm going to give you an example of myself, years from now, how, when I was at the beginning of my career, how I exactly, picked up so many skills, and how I exactly, performed this learn by doing and things like that. So I'm going to show you that, like, tell you about that example and show you a few things as well around that, right? And from next video onwards, we are going to move into demonstrations, right? So a lot of people, I mean, not just me, but a lot of people, they usually talk about, uh, you should learn by doing and things like that, but no one actually breaks it down, right? I mean, learn by doing is self-explanatory in itself, right? I mean, it simply means that you build stuff and learn while building it. Learn by doing, right? So do it, whatever you learn, just do it, and you'll actually, retain all of that and learn all of that. That's what learn by doing is, but it's still confusing, right? At the end of the day, you don't know how to, learn by do, right? So I mean, this video is for that, and I would like to start this series, I mean, this video, by simply telling you what learn by doing is. So as you can see in front of your screen, learn by doing is an approach to learning that emphasizes practical hands-on experience over theoretical knowledge, right? So pretty straightforward. I always believed in this approach because I didn't do college, so I was not aware about, what theories are there, what theoretical things are there, and stuff like that. I was always, a hands-on person, a practical person. I used to, I love doing things, right, rather than, just reading about them or learning them and things like that, right? So instead of simply reading, watching, or studying about a subject, learners actively engage with the subject matter by working on projects, tasks, or activities that requires them to apply what they want or what they have learnt in a real world context, right? So you just apply your skills to some particular task, project, things like that, right? By doing, learners are able to build their skills, gain practical experience, and develop a deeper understanding of the subject matter, right? So this approach is often used in vocational or technical training programs where learners need to gain hands-on experience to prepare for their careers, right? And it can be applied to any field or study from science to arts, right? So it's not tech specific per se. I mean, think of it as, learning how to ride a scooty, right? I mean, if let's say you want to ride a bike or a scooty, you won't learn about it just by reading about it, right? I mean, it's fine, that this is the clutch, this is the brake, and this is the gear and things like that. You know all of that stuff, but until and unless you practice, you won't actually know how to ride a bike, right? So you need to practice, you need to fall down a couple of times, and eventually you'll start getting a hang of how, it works. And so that's exactly what learn by doing is, right? No matter how much you study about how to ride a cycle or how to ride a bike, unless and until you try it yourself, until and unless you do it yourself, you won't be able to ride a bike or a cycle, right? It's as simple as that, right? So some benefits of learn by doing approach includes increased retention of the information, right? So whenever you do something, you just retain it in your mind that okay, this is something that I did. You will know the mistakes that you made. You will know the bugs that you encountered. I'm talking specifically in the tech context right now. So you'll remember the mistakes. You'll remember the bugs that came when you were coding. You'll remember the solutions that you implemented for the bugs, just because you just didn't just read about it, you actually did it, right? You actually struggled with it for a little bit, right? So that's that's there, then better understanding of how concepts apply to the real world situations, that's an obvious, right? So development of problem solving and critical thinking skills, that's a plus, right? Because whenever you learn by doing, there's no way you're never going to encounter any problems. You're going to be always around problems, right? And you start, applying your common sense. You start, improving your common sense and things like that. Your critical thinking skills improve, and your problem solving in general, improves, because you have to solve these problems on your own now, right? And with the help of internet, of course, but you have to figure it out on your own, right? So that's there. And increased motivation and engagement in the learning process, right? So you're always motivated, you're building something, right? You're seeing the results in front of you, right? So the overall, the learn by doing is valuable approach to learning that can help learners develop practical skills and deeper understanding of the subject matter, right? So this was pretty straightforward stuff, and bear with me right now. I mean, I'm going a little bit theoretical, but soon we'll get to the exciting part as well. And that starts now, right? So how to learn by doing, right? So I mean, I tried to break it down into some steps, right? These are not the exact steps that I myself followed. Didn't follow all the steps that you see in front of your screen. I missed out on a few steps. But since I'm a more experienced person from the time back then, I added a few things that I didn't include for myself, right? So how to learn by doing. So the first thing is that you should start with a clear goal and choose a project, right? So the first thing is that you should be clear in your mind what your goal is, right? It could be that I want to become a backend developer, right? For me it was to become a backend developer. uh, it could be that I want to start freelancing. I want to, acquire some skills. I want to acquire some solid skills that can help me, do some freelancing, some get me some clients, and I can show them some work, get their work, and perform all of that. I need to be able to do that, right? It could be that you want to become a front end developer, a DevOps engineer, things like that, right? So you should have a clear goal and a project that you want to build around that, right? So if let's say it's a backend uh, developer that you're pursuing to be, then you can simply build a to-do application or something, like, start small, right? It doesn't have to be a big project, although no matter how big the project is, it can still get completed if you take the right approach. So that's there. And yeah, so that's the first point. And moving on to the next point, research and gather information about the projects and tech stack, right? So this is very important. I mean, once you finalize the clear goal that you have and the project that you want to build, now you want to, come across a tech stack. So for most of the students, it's pretty sorted, right? Some of you might come saying that I want to learn Android. Some of you might come saying I want to learn Next.js. Some of you might come saying I want to learn Django. I want to learn Go, whatever it is, right? Whatever language, Rust, whatever language you want to learn, right? So you know the tech stack. Most of you would already be aware about it. You need to gather some information about it, right? You need to, actually install it in your device. You need to read a little bit about it. uh, I often say that you don't have to, thoroughly go through the documentation and things like that. I usually say just skim through it, right? Just give it a read once, right? Because in that way, about that technology, you'll get a good context about how it is and what features does it offers, what things there are that you might need later and things like that. You don't need to understand any of that, understand how it works and things like that. You don't need all of that when you're starting out. You just need to be aware about those things, right? So if let's say that in my first project, the first demonstration project that I will be building for this learn by doing, it's going to be a Java based Android application, right? Using Android Studio and things like that, right? So what I did was I just saw a little bit of documentation, right? So when you see that entire demonstration, it's a long demonstration, 4.5 5 hours, something like that. I've already shot that, right? So I mean, this is actually the first part, but I'm shooting it after shooting that one. But I mean, in that video, you'll see how much time do I actually spend in doing the information. It's next to none, right? And in my case, it's applicable somehow because I still have, context and ideas about how things work, just because I have, all these years of experience. But if you're a student, all you have to do is just go through the documentation once, just read it once, right? Nothing more than that. You just need to be aware of the things that are available. No need to learn them at the very first go, right? No one is asking you to, right? just need to be aware about things, right? So that's next. And then going on to the next point, break the project into smaller manageable tasks, or plan out the steps you need to take to complete the project or the task. Now, again, this point is self-explanatory, right? I mean, you need to break your entire thing into smaller manageable tasks or smaller manageable parts, smaller manageable problems, right? Because any big problem that you look at, any big project that you look at, it can be broken down into smaller elements, smaller parts, right? So break it down as much as you can, break it down to as small problems as you can create out of it, right? And just try to attempt one problem at a time. Now this might be difficult to understand at this point of time, so we are going to get back to this point later on in this video when I'm going to jump into the example that I'm going to tell you about from my past experiences, right? So let's skip this one for now, right? And moving forward, the next thing is to start working, right? Begin working on the project or task. Take small steps and work through each part of the process. Don't be afraid to make mistakes or try new things, right? So you need to start working. Once you have broken down your project into as smaller parts as you can, you need to start working on it, right? One task at a time, one small step at a time. Whatever steps you have broken it down into, just pick one step and just focus on it. Forget about everything else that is going on, just focus on it. How am I going to solve this, right? That's the only concern that you should have. No concern about any other thing that is there, right? Just one concern: how do I solve this smaller problem, right? Don't worry about the bigger picture, the entire thing. None of that matters at this moment, right? You only need to focus at that one small task. Take small steps and work through each part of the process, right? That's it, right? Don't be afraid to make mistakes or try out new things. So obviously, I mean, since you are learning by doing, right? You're learning while you're building something, while you're doing something, right? Since you are doing that, it's pretty natural that you make a lot of mistakes, right? You shouldn't be afraid of doing them, right? And you'll see a good example of this in my next demonstration video, where I'm going to attempt that Java application. I made immense number of mistakes, right? I don't even remember how many mistakes I made. I missed out semicolons here and there, some basic stuff, basic programming stuff that is there. I missed out on so many things. I made so many mistakes, but I was excited about it, right? I was learning, right? You'll see in that video. But don't be afraid to make mistakes or try out new things. This means that you're learning. If you're making mistakes and you're trying out new things, this means that you're learning, right? So embrace it, right? And don't be afraid of it. The next point is that to reflect and evaluate after each step. So once you complete a step, let's say you broke your problem down into 10 simple steps, right? Once you complete that first step out of the 10, just take a step back and think about it, right? Think about, what you learned while solving that step, right? What did you learn? What mistakes did you make? What are the things that you can improve going forward? Where were the places where you struggled and things like that? Just try to reflect on all of that, try to evaluate how you performed, right? And then move forward, right? Because going forward, you need to be aware about these things. You need to be aware about the things that you did good, the things that didn't go your way, you could improve and things like that, and the things that you made mistakes on, the things that you would not want to repeat, right? So you need to evaluate all of those things. And you should be someone who seeks feedback, right? So I mean, in today's time, there are so many places available. You can join any Discord community that is there. You can join my Discord server as well, and you can take my feedback directly. I'm pretty open to give feedback on these things. And you can ask people in the community, you can ask on Twitter. There are so many places where you can ask feedback, so seek feedback. There might be people who would tell you better ways to do the same thing. They might tell you about some new technology that you can explore to do the same thing, right? They might get interested and try to help you in doing that. You might find partners to pair program with you. There are a lot of benefits of reaching out to people and seeking feedback, right? So seek feedback so that you can improve and you can help others improve as well. So I mean, learn by doing and learning in public goes side by side, right? So that's there. Whatever project you are working on, share about it. Once the project gets completed, share it with people, ask feedback, things like that. Whatever you're learning, share it with people, right? Seek feedback in what you're doing, right? So this feedback is very important. This is what is going to go. take you to places, right? So that's there. And then finally repeat, right? Build something new, right? Once you've completed a project, say that, okay, I've completed this. Now I'm going to take a little bit more difficult project and I'm going to complete it. I'm going to nail it, right? That should be your attitude. That should be your mindset. And it's definitely going to take some time for you to reach that stage where you're confident enough, where it's coming from inside you that I want to, build a new project and, something like that. It's going to take some time. Maybe, when you watch me building some projects while I demonstrate how I learn by doing usually, right? I've been doing it since the very start of my career, since the time I had no knowledge. I've been doing that since then, and I'm going to give you an example of how I did that in my initial days. But I mean, if you're not into that, then eventually it's going to take some time. But once you pass through that time and you actually get the gist of it and you understand, then you'll start having a lot of fun while learning new things, right? So that's there. So that's all about how to learn by doing. Now let's move on to the example that I was talking about, right? So coming back to the question, a lot of students usually generally ask me how I was able to learn a lot of things quickly and things like that. So I'll talk a little bit about my journey as well, right? In November 2017 I started coding. Before that I had next to no exposure to software development and coding and things like that. So I literally had next to no exposure in all of those things, and November 2017 was the time when I actually started coding, right? So I started with Linux. Ubuntu was my first operating system, and I dived pretty deep into Ubuntu and Linux and its ecosystem and things like that. So I dived pretty deep into it, and apart from that I started learning Python, right? So here in front of your screen I have my GitHub open, right? And in my GitHub you would see some repositories that are there, right? So there are about what, 1 2 3 4 5 6 and 7 repositories that are almost uploaded back to back, created back to back, updated on 21st 2018, updated on 21st Jan 21st 2018, Jan 21st, Jan 22nd, Jan 22nd, Jan 22nd, and then finally Jan 23rd, right? So all of these repositories, and after that it's directly June 5 2018, right? So forget about the June 5 one. Let's talk about the January ones, right? So I created my new GitHub account in January, right? I started coding in November 2017, and almost 2 months of coding or something like that. In January, I finally created a GitHub account. And in my GitHub account, whatever I coded up until then, I felt the urge to, upload all of that on GitHub, right? So I mean, I'm quickly going to show you all the programs that I built in my initial days, right? So the first thing is some bash scripts. Obviously, I mean, I loved Linux. I loved exploring Linux and things like that. So I created this commit, right? And it has two programs. One is a simple bash script, which is to rearrange files and things like that based on, text, pictures, and video, whatever it is. So TXT files, PNG, JPEG files, and videos, whatever it was. And the second program was to compress a video. I think, I mean, I must have been working on some videos or something like that. I must have needed this program. I must have a large video I needed to compress. So I wrote a bash script to compress the video, right? Instead of, finding an online tool to do that, I built my own script, right? So that was the, uh, you know, geek that I was in context to computer science and Linux and things like that. I wanted to try things on my own. I wanted to build things on my own, right? But this is pretty basic stuff. I mean, these bash scripts are not that advanced. They're pretty basic. Apart from that, I built a scraper, right? So this is an Indian Go list scraper. Not sure what that is, but it must be a website from which I scraped some data. Uh, Again, I mean, this was uploaded on 21st January 2018, just one commit, so I just uploaded it, right? And inside this, you would see that all this code is written about 230 lines of code, but half of it is just comments because I mean, since I was learning, I used to write a comment after each and every line. So after each and every line you would see that there's a comment, right? So that I don't forget coming back to my code that what exactly was it doing, right? So this is a scraper, right? It used to scrape some data. So I think that this details.txt was the data that it created in the form of txt, and yeah, these were the websites, the pages that I wanted to scrape, and this is the CSV of the entire data that got scraped, I think, something like that, about 2000 entries. Right. So moving forward, then I had some Python programs. So this was also the time when I was, exploring some DSA and things like that, right? So I mean, I haven't touched DSA ever since then, nor did I ever need it, right? But I mean, I back then I used to write some simple Python programs or attempt some DSA questions. So the best DSA questions or the best Python programs I wrote back then are in this repository. This is my Slack bot, my very first software or a bot that I ever created. My first program on Python that really got me interested and curious about Python. So this was my first ever program ever written, right? I never wrote anything before this, only some if else conditions and things like that. But this was the first real program that actually did something, right? So this is my first program, Slackbot, right? A pretty small, simple 16 liner, right? And then I mean this must be a DSA question or something. Reverse parentheses. I don't remember the question. Function to return the reverse of a string which is within parentheses. So I mean if you get a string and inside the parentheses there's a substring, then you need to reverse the substring, something like that. Then there's a Minesweeper game that is there, don't remember it. There's a chess knight. So chess knight problem that is there. Can the knight kill the bishop? All those things. So it must be that. Then can bishop kill pawn? Right, something like that. Uh, so this was the program for that. I was like these chess questions really took a lot of time. So these chess questions were the ones that used to take me 8 to 10 hours to solve, and I really got stuck in these questions. So that's why these questions are present here. Then there was this build palindrome. Um Simply created a palindrome, I guess. There's this box blur. I don't remember what it does, but these are the simple Python programs that I wrote. Then let's talk about the visualizations, right? So I was also into a little bit into data science and things like that. So this repository I think is a waste because I'm not sure what that's. Okay, so these txt files that are there, they contain visualization on Tableau that I must have created. So let's try to open, one of these correlation prices it is, but let's see what it actually is. So it is hosted on Tableau. It's still available. Linear regression, regression line and correlation by Apoorv Goyal, and it must show the correlation between average gold price and average oil price, something like that. So you can see that as the price of the gold increases, the price of the oil also increases, or vice versa, right? So there's a correlation, right? This was a finding, right? And similarly, there must be other other things. Internet users region. I'm not sure what this is. Let's open this up. So I think this is our data by year, which is pretty amazing. I mean, I can't build this again. Definitely, I don't remember how to work with Tableau, but this was back then. This is a visualization of the composition of internet users from different regions of the world, 1990 to 2016, something like that. So these were simple visualizations that I created. Then we had some data analysis, right? So obviously, I mean, since I was into data science and things like that, I built these, things, uh, doing some data analysis. So I think this is the final PDF that was there. So I took the data of Titanic from Kaggle, and I discovered some interesting findings out of it. For example, there were three classes of passengers: Class A, Class B, and Class C. So if you see the number of deaths, then Class C passengers has the most number of deaths, obviously because they were in Tier 3, you know, class, so they were the last ones to get evacuated. Most probably. I mean, that's my hypothesis. Passengers A and B would have been evacuated much quicker because I mean they were on a higher class, higher pay class, right? Something like that. They paid more for their classes. And if you see the survivors, then females, or I mean, obviously females were uh, in greater number of survivors as compared to males. So some visualizations in that context, and some data analysis as well. Then this is the portfolio website at apoorvgoyal.github.io. It is a portfolio website, and I didn't know any HTML CSS back then, so this was coded by my friend, one of my friends. He coded this entire thing for me, right? So this is there, and yeah, and the final program that I have was mouse events. This was the program that I was personally, most proud of, right? Because this program was an extreme challenge for me when I took it up. And what it did was that as soon as you know, as soon as you turn on your computer, it used to start keeping a track of how many times you move your mouse, how many times you scroll your mouse, and how many times you click somewhere, right? Something like that. So it used to keep a track of all the events that your mouse is doing, a count of them, and when you shut down your system, right? And this program, used to start automatically when I turn on my laptop or my computer, right? And when I shut it down, when let's say I'm shutting down my PC or something like that, then this program, before shutting the program down, before shutting the process down, if you've watched my Linux video, then you'd understand what I'm talking about. So before shutting my, uh, process down, uh, it used to, take the data that it has collected and save it into a txt file, right? That was the entire utility of this program. Right now, I mean, just a fun question. If you have watched my Linux video, then can you tell me how exactly did I configure it to, start as a process automatically when I started my system? Just think about it, pause this video, maybe let me know in the comment section below. So that's question one, how this program automatically started as a process when I started my system. And the second question is that how exactly did I make it to save the data it has collected in a txt file before my system is shutting down? How did these two things were achieved? I mean, the answer to that is definitely in my Linux series, right? If you have watched it, then I'm confident that you should be able to answer it. If not, uh, then I'll tell you. But if you know the answers, let me know in the comment section below. Now, for those who don't know the answer, there's a file called init.d, right, which is the mother process, right? If you remember. So I like the mother process, the mother process that is there. It runs all the processes that are listed down in the init.d file, and I took this init.d file and like wrote my program in that, right? So I mean, I like entered the command in that, so that whenever my system starts and whenever the mother process starts all the necessary processes that it needs to start up the system, it used to start this program as well, right? So that's how I got it to start on the boot up. And the second one is interesting, how I got it to save the data before uh, you know my system shut down. So I told you about signals, right? There are different signals available, right? So when there's a process running, and when there's a process running and the computer shuts down, so before shutting the computer down, all the processes needs to be killed, right? So the kernel sends them a signal, and that signal on shutdown is known as sick kill, right? So it tells the sick term or sick kill, some one of those. Either it asks them to terminate themselves, or kill themselves. So it's one of those sick kill or sick term. So I created a sig handler, right? So I used to handle the signal. I used to listen to the signal in this program of which signal am I receiving? Am I receiving if I'm receiving either of the sick kill or sick term signal, right, which are the two common signals that could result in uh, system shutting down or something like that, they would only come. I mean, if this is a background process, then only sick kill or sick term will come when I'm shutting down my system, right? So, I mean, I used to listen to these signals, and as soon as I got any of those signals, I used to execute a script which quickly used to save this data and then kill the process, right? So that the why I was able to do it because I was good with Linux. I was really good with Linux, right? So I mean, this is the last program that I have that I uploaded on my GitHub. And apart from these uh, programs, I think there was nothing else that I built apart from this, right? So this was you can see that this is more or less 3 months of experience for me, right? All the things that I've built up until now that I've shown you, I started in November 2017. So November, December, and then January. This is uploaded in January, right? So 3 months, 3 months of experience was all that I had. This was all the the knowledge, the skills that I had in 3 months of span, right? But once these 3 months were ended, I got a freelancing project, right? And I'll now tell you about that freelancing project, right? So I'm going to close this and let's talk about this. So this is my profile on freelancer.com, and this profile is pretty old. It's from the time when I started coding. I created this profile in February 2018, right? After creating that GitHub, right? And after creating this profile, I got my first project on my very first day on my very first bid, right? So this was the project about 5 years ago from Ferdinand. He was from Germany. Right, and this project was for 355 euros. I don't know how much that is in Indian currency, but back then, after freelancer.com took its cut, it was 25,000 rupees for me. Right, huge deal back then. 3 months of experience, no college degree, nothing like that, and I got this project. Right, and this project was insane. Right, I mean, if I talk in terms of skills, this project was simply insane. Right, this was a crypto trading bot. So I had to trade cryptocurrencies and I had to create a bot that used to trade cryptocurrencies. And it says that scrape Slack messages from API. Right. So there were some Slack messages on API. I needed to scrape them, which used to tell me when exactly do I need to make the trade. Right. And execute trades automatically via API of two crypto exchanges. So the two crypto exchanges were Bittrex and Binance. Right. So this was the project. Now, just think about this project for a bit, right? Think about the skills that I've shown you that worked at, like that I had in those 3 months of span with the projects that I showed you, the simple projects that I showed you. Think about those projects and the skills that I acquired building those, and then now think about this project, right? You'll see immense difference between the two, right? I mean, with 3 months of experience and with those kinds of project that I built, in no way ever I was ever going to complete this project, right? Neither on time or even indefinitely, right? I would have never been able to complete this project even if I had 2 months, 3 months, something like that, because this project was way beyond my skill set, right? I mean, I couldn't even imagine this project, right? It was that huge for me. I'm talking in terms of skills, I'm talking in terms of difficulty, right? But still, you can see that I have a 5 star on it, right? And Ferdinand said that excellent work, will hire again. I'm still friends with him, right? And he still, sometimes reaches me out for projects and things like that. But I mean, I got a 5 star and a good review from him, right? And made a client out of it, right? So how exactly, with the skills that I had, with 3 months of experience, no college degree, no professional experience, nothing like that, and with just 3 months into the coding, and with those basic projects that I just showed you, how was I able to complete this project, right? Just think about it, right? So there was a way of completing this project, right? I'll even show you the code base of it. So this is the code base available for it. As you can see, this code base is mainly, the commits that are there are around that time only: 5 March, 21st March 2018, 22nd February, 27th February, 21, 21, 27, whatever it is, right? So it's around March, February in 2000. 18, right? Somewhere around that. And this was my main crypto trading bot. Right, so this was the main bot that I built for crypto trading, and this is a huge bot, as you can see, about 900 lines of code. This bot is, and this bot has, multiple functions. So it has the first, I mean, I used to import the SQLite library in it, right? And after that, I used to create a database, right? And like, just to give you an example of how noob I was at coding, you can see that the path that is written here, I've hard coded this, right? So I didn't even know about there are pseudo paths and things like that. I can, write relative paths and things like that. No, I've hard coded the path, right? So that was the level of noob I was in coding, right? So creating database, and I had all these records and logs and things like that. Then creating the connection between database and stuff, the software, creating a table in the database, then scraping signals. So the first task was that I had to, you know scrape some messages from Slack, right? Based on which I had to do some trades, right? That was the entire thing, right? So scraping signals, so I wrote a function to, scrape signals and things like that. This was the function to scrape signals, and you can see that I have pretty much the same coding style. Uh, a comment after almost each and every line of code, right? Because I mean, I was in uncharted waters right now. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just doing it, right? One problem at a time, right? And I'm going to explain to you how exactly was I able to complete this. What was the key ingredient to completing this project? I'm going to talk about that in a while, but I'm just like showing you the project as of now. So this was for scraping signals. I used to scrape all the signals from Slack. Then I used to call the exchange function. So once the signals are scraped, it used to tell me a few things. It used to tell me the coins that I had to buy or sell, right? The market in which I had to buy and sell. It used to tell me that first thing. And the second thing it used to tell me was which exchange do I need to, buy or sell this on? Do I need to buy sell this on Bittrex? Do I need to buy sell this on Binance? And what is the rate? What is the price of it, right? So it used to tell me a few things, those Slack messages. Once I received it, I had to take a decision between if I want to you like do the trade on Bittrex, or if I had to do the trade on Binance. So that was the decision that I had to take. Now, one huge problem that I encountered here was that once you buy some coins from the crypto market, then there are some conditions set on when do you want to sell it. It could be that the conditions are set to 5% profit, that as soon as after purchasing, once you hit 5% profit, I need to sell it immediately. It could be that, or it could be in case of a loss, that I can afford a loss of 2%. So 2% is my stop loss percentage. We used to call that stop loss, and 2% is my stop loss percentage. So as soon as I endure a loss of 2%, who knows that the coin might be crashing down fast, so you need to sell it as soon as possible. As soon as 2% of loss is incurred, sell it, right? So that was the condition, right? Now, who knows that once you buy a cryptocurrency, how much time are you going to hold it, right? It could be that the price doesn't moves 5% up or 2% down in the span of 10 days, right? That's a possibility, right? I mean, I'm holding the coin for 10 days. Haven't been able to sell because I have met neither of the conditions that are there. I've neither achieved 5% profit nor achieved 2% loss, right? So I still hold the coin after 10 days. But the signals on Slack, they used to come regularly, right? I mean, once a signal comes, maybe in 15 minutes another is coming, maybe in 30 minutes another is coming, right? And the basic problem with Python is that once I call this function, let's say that I create this function called buy Bittrex. So this buy Bittrex, what it used to do was it used to buy the coin, and then it used to monitor the price of the coin, and as soon as it hits any of the condition of 5% profit or 2% loss, it's going to sell it, right? So that was the entire utility of this buy Bittrex function, right? So I mean, or buy Binance, whatever it is. So this buy function had this utility, and similarly, there are corresponding sell functions as well, right? But as soon as I execute this buy Bittrex or buy Binance function, right, my this loop will stop, right? This loop which is listening to messages, which is scraping signals, this will stop, because until and unless it has completed the entire thing, until and unless it has bought it and then sell it as well, until and unless then it will not scrape any signals further, right? And signals used to come every 5, 10, 15 minutes, right? So I had to, do something to make this function work independently of the program. I wanted my signals to be, scraped constantly, and I wanted them to create different processes for my Bittrex and Binance and things like that, right? Now again, I mean, since I was good with Linux, and since I know how things work in Linux, I knew about something known as multi-threading. I create my last video on Linux, I guess, is on multiple threads of execution. As of now, there are going to be more videos, but as of now it's on multiple threads of execution. So I knew what exactly it was, and I knew that there's something known as, multi-threading, where I can create multiple threads of the same process or something like that. So I explored if there's something called multi-threading in Python. If yes, then how to implement it. And I came across a library where I could create background threads where this program will keep running, but this function, this by Bittrex function, will move to a thread, so it won't affect this program. It will keep running, right? So smart solution, although it took me some time to figure out, but that was there. And then I created this buy Bittrex function. It used to buy the conditions, save the data in the database, then sell Bittrex. Once I've bought it, now I want to sell it. So this was the entire function to sell the thing, right? Then I had my buy Binance function. I bought the entire thing on Binance, sell Binance, so selling the entire thing on Binance. And I mean, if you're an experienced developer, or you have more experience than what I had back then you would notice that this is a pretty noob code, right? And it took me almost a month to build this, right? But I mean, in today's time, if I had to build it again, I'll probably make it 100 times better and 100 times faster as well, right? So that's there. That's all about experience, but I was still able to complete this project. And not just a script, right? I created a script to run my server as well, right? And then, I mean, after starting this project, once I was once I almost completed this crypto trading bot, Ferdinand told me that he wanted a GUI panel for it as well, to see what are the active trades that are going on, the coins that the bot has bought but hasn't sold yet. He needed an option to configure the percentages that I was talking about, 5% profit, 2% loss. What if he wants to change them, right? What if he wants to change that 5% to 3%? What if he wants to change the 2% stop loss to 1%, right? And what if he wants to override the sell, right? If, let's say, the conditions are not met for 10 days, and he's holding some coin and he wants to sell it immediately, so he needed a button which can sell it immediately, right, without waiting for the conditions, right? So override the sell function, right? So he needed that panel, right? So for that I learned Django, right? I created this panel which was on Django. It is built with Django. So I mean, I use Django in it, Django core management and things like that. Then I mean, I created a crypto app for it, which had this admin panel. Uh, not this one. It has its forms, right? It had the entire form that was there, and it had what is this? So this, I think, is the URL pattern for home. I'm not sure how or what I did. Then these are the views for the form. There's some templates as well for, I think, the HTML and CSS. This was the base HTML. I learned a little bit of HTML. Then this was the home. Then some registration forms, the login form that was there for getting the user to log in. Then after that, I think there was this crypto as well, which was, some settings, WSGI settings for running the production server of Django or Flask, whatever it is. Then this was again, some URLs for my site, some settings for my website, um, some basic settings that were there for my website, and things like that. So all of that was there, and obviously the initialization file as well. The init should be here. Yeah, so the initialization file, this is also empty. Don't know how I used to write the code, but yeah, I mean, I completed this project, right? So now you may wonder that, Apoorv, how exactly, were you able to do this, right? And this is like one of the reasons why I grew so fast. I mean, a lot of students ask me, Apoorv, how did you grow so fast and things like that. This was the thing, right? I mean, I got this project, I got this freelancing project, and I didn't back away from it. I didn't fear from it, right? The simple thing I did was I didn't know how to build it. I had no idea how to build it, and I mean, I lacked all the skills that I needed to build this. But the only thing was that I knew how to learn by doing, right? That was the only thing that I knew, right? And before even starting this project, right? Before I even, started writing the single first line of code of this project, what I did was I created a flowchart, right? So this is the flowchart that is there that I created back then, right? Now the problem with this flowchart is that I mean it's a pretty old flowchart, and I spent a lot of time trying to find it, but the thing is that the quality of it is pretty bad, right? I mean it's an old flowchart. I don't have the original version available right now, and the quality of it is bad. But this is the flowchart that I created entirely, right? And I mean, just to show you guys, I mean, since this original version is not usable anymore, I recreated that entire flowchart, right? So, I mean, here, if you look at it, then it is divided into three sections. The main section, which is in the center, which is this section, and then a buy section and a sell section, right? So, three sections I've divided it into it. Let's take a look at the main section, right? Now, with this opened, right, this is the main section that I created it exactly the same as that one, right? So let's take a look at these steps now, again the steps that I've mentioned, right? So the first step is to start with a clear goal and choose a project, right? I had a clear goal in mind. I had a freelancing project in front of me. It was worth 25,000 rupees for me. I had to get it completed, right? I had no other choice. Like it wasn't like I had an option. I had to get it completed, right? I really needed the money. So that was my clear goal. I had a project in front of me, right? So my point one that is written here, this point, this is done, right? I had to do this, right? And I had a project as well. Research and gather information about the project and tech stack. Now for the tech stack, I knew that I'm going to use Python for this. I mean, if you look at again go back to the browser, if you look at the project, then he has mentioned, I mean Ferdinand has mentioned so many things. He has mentioned PHP, C programming, web scraping, C sharp, software architecture. See, I am a software developer, or at least I pretended to be a software engineer, and a professional one at that. And he was not, right? He didn't had any software experience. So it's natural for him to write all these technologies down there: PHP, C programming, web scraping. But I am the expert here, right? I am the one who is calling the shots, right? I am the one who is taking the decisions, right? I decided to build it in Python. I decided that it will be the best approach. And since he's a non-tech person, he didn't object to it, right? So whenever you see a freelancing project, it's never like you have to do it in the technologies that are mentioned. You can do it in technologies that you are comfortable with, as long as it makes sense. So building a bot, a crypto trading bot in Python made sense, and I built it in Python, right? So I knew that I was going to use Python, but I was stuck with a database. Now I never worked with database, so I thought about if I should use a SQL database, but MySQL or PostgreSQL was pretty difficult to set up, and I wasn't able to do that. So I came across SQLite, right? And with SQLite, I mean, I thought that this is a simple, straightforward database, and I can use it. So I started learning a little bit about SQLite and how to implement it in Python and things like that. That was the part about research and gather information. Obviously, I mean, since I was also working with, things like Bittrex, I'm not sure if that platform is available yet. So Bittrex is still there. So this is Bittrex, and you all must have heard about Binance. No need to say that. So obviously, I mean, since there were Bittrex and Binance involved, I also had to see if their APIs are available in Python or not, right? If they have any libraries that are available in Python that can help me access their APIs, their data, and things like that, make trades, stuff like that. So I had to do, all of that research as well, explore their documentations, go through their documentations, read all of those things, take the decision if Python is the right language or not. Maybe their, these Bittrex and Binance platforms would have offered their, documentation or their libraries that are there that can be used to make trades or things like that in on their platform on Java, right? So I couldn't have chosen Python, because of that. So I did that research about, the APIs that these offer, the libraries, SQLite and things like that. Just gathered information and saw if I'm choosing the right tech stack or not for this, right? If Python is the right call or not, if SQLite can get the job done, if Bittrex and Binance is available in Python or not, their libraries, APIs, things like that, right? So I did all of that research. It was all good to go. So I knew my tech stack as well. I was good on research, right? Now the next thing was to break the project into smaller manageable tasks or plan out the steps you need to take to complete the task, right? Now this is when I created the flowcharts, right? So I created this flowchart. Now, as as like the way I've explained you the entire thing of how the crypto trading bot needs to work, right? Or needed to work back then. This was the flowchart that I created based on, what I thought or what I had in mind, right? So you receive signals on Slack received, right? And this is a function to scrape messages from Slack, and this is about scraped info. So I created an infinite loop to scrape messages from Slack. So after every second, I used to loop that infinite loop while true. Right, while true. That was the loop. I used to run that loop infinitely. And as soon as I received a message, I used to scrape these three things, right? Market, exchange, and rate. So what are the coins that I want to, trade? What is the exchange? Is it Bittrex or Binance? And what is the price, right? So market will be entered as an argument for the buy function, buy limit will be entered as an argument for the buy function, right? So whatever rate I got, there was a tolerance range, right? The tolerance range of, I mean, I don't remember exactly what this tolerance range was, but after adding some tolerance range, I used to get a value that was my buy limit, how much can I buy, right? And that buy limit and the market was, get used to passed in the buy functions of Bittrex and Binance, right? So I used to get all this data. I used to calculate my buy limit. I knew my market. Now, based on the exchange, I used to check if exchange is equal to Bittrex or not. Right. And if exchange is equal to Bittrex, I mean, if you show the, if I show you this line here, right, in the old flowchart, there here also, I think you can make out that it's written if exchange is equal to Bittrex, right? So it's the same thing. And now going back to the code, here, I mean, if you look at my crypto trading bot.py, then you will notice that the condition that I have used is exactly the same. If exchange is equal to Bittrex, I didn't do if exchange is equal to Binance, I did if exchange is equal to Bittrex. Why? Because I was just following that flowchart step by step, block by block, right? Nothing else. I just created that flowchart and followed it to my heart, right? I followed it piece by piece, block by block, right? And I got the result, right? So if exchange is Bittrex or not, if it is true, then buy function Bittrex where I'll pass market and buy limit, and if it is false, then buy function Binance, because obviously if it is not Bittrex, then it is Binance. I used to call the Binance function with the same arguments, and once it has bought it, I used to get a buying price, like what is the final price on which I've bought it, right? So whatever buying price I used to get, I used to put it into the database SQLite, right? Now this was my buy functions, right? This entire flow was my buy function, and this was my sell function. So then I would call my sell function, right, for sell Bittrex and Binance, and whatever values I got from it for selling price, whatever selling price I got from it, I used to enter it into the database, right? So this is the entire flow of the program, pretty straightforward, easy to understand, right? Now I needed to break down the buy and the sell function in detail as well. So let's talk about the buy function now. Now, if you look at the flowchart for the buy function, you will see that as soon as this function is called, the first thing that I used to say was that if market price is less than or equal to buy limit, right? So whatever limit I have to buy, if the market price is less than that, then I can obviously buy it. If not, then I have to, wait for my market price to be less than or equal to my buy limit, right? So if this is false, right, if let's say my market price does not match with my buy limit, it's not less than or equal to, it's greater than my buy limit, I cannot buy it, it's not in my budget, right? If it is false, then check the market price each second for 15 minutes. So for 15 minutes, I used to check the price again and again, right? To see if the price has come down or not, right? And if the market price is less than or equal to buy limit, now again, I mean, this is a rookie mistake because no API gets updated each and every second. So what I had to do was to check every minute, right? This was a rookie mistake and I openly accept it. But yeah, I mean, so after that, I mean, after checking it again and again in an infinite loop for 15 minutes, if the market price is less than equal to buy limit, if this condition is false now, again, I mean, even after 15 minutes, even after spending 15 minutes, if it is still false, then I will cancel the buy order and save in my database that buy is executed is equal to false, that I didn't even buy it, right? Buy is not executed, buy is executed is equal to false, right? And if it is true, then I'm going to take my buying price and I'm going to enter it into the database, right? So this is my flow when my market price at first is not in my limit, right? And when it is true, if the market price in the first go is in my limit, then again I'm going to do the transaction, get a buying price, enter it into the database, and then make my buys executed is equal to true. So in both the scenarios, even here and here, I'm getting the final output as buy is executed is equal to true, right? And this is a sell is executed remains false, right? So my buy is executed is true. In this case, buy is executed was false, but now buy is executed is true, but still my sell is executed remains false, right? So that was my buy function. Now this is also pretty straightforward to understand. I mean, if you just look at the flow chart, then you can probably visualize how you want to code it, right? You can already think about the code as well. And if not, then you just need to, think about it one at a time. I just first need a condition, and if that condition is true, then I need the buying price, right? I mean, get the buying price after making the trade, and then I need to enter it into the database. If it is not, then I need to enter a loop for 15 minutes and check the price again and again. If after 15 minutes it's false, then buy is executed, cancel the order, and buy is executed is equal to false. If it is true, then go set it into the database, right? So, I mean, just by looking at this flowchart, you're able to think of the code as well. You know what the code is going to be, right? And similarly, talking about the cell function, right? Again, I mean, it's the same stuff. So, cell function on Bittrex, right? And it queries the database every second, infinite while loop. So again, I'm querying the database and again. And I'm saying, I mean, this function used to query the database again and again, and it used to check the condition if buy is executed is equal to true and sell is executed is equal to false. So if there's any trade where buy is executed and sell is not executed yet, then for that particular row, whatever it is for true, then I used to evaluate the profit loss situation, that what is the situation going on, right? So if in case it is in profit, right, then I used to see if the market price is greater than equal to profit point. So the profit point that I had with the added 5% or added 3%, whatever it is, whatever amount of whatever percentage of profit I want, if the market price is greater than that, then I used to sell it immediately, right? Otherwise, I'll hold it. Right, obviously, so there's no false. If the market price is greater than or equal to buying point, I am sell it. Right. And if I'm in loss, then I'm going to check if my market price is less than or equal to stop loss, right? Which is my 2% of loss that I can afford. Right. So if it is less than or equal to it, I'm going to sell it. Right. Simple flow. Right. If I'm in profit, if my market price is greater than my profit point, sell it. If I'm in loss, if my market price is less than my stop loss, sell it. Right. So sell it in either case. Right, until and unless it's in the middle, right? And after selling it, the selling price used to go into the database, and the selling is executed is equal to true. So even the sell is executed now, so buy is executed, sell is executed. So for that particular row, this will never be true, because one is true and second is false. This requires that, but in this case, both are true, right? So just by looking at these flowcharts, right? I mean, I created this individual flowcharts, but back then I had this one merged into one, these three flowcharts, one after the other, right? And just by looking at these flowcharts, uh, more than half of my job is done, because I don't have to worry about anything. I just need to pick this entire flowchart piece by piece, block by block, write the code for it. No worries about any of the other stuff, just that one block at that point, and my code is done, right? And this flowchart I created even before, coding the entire thing, even before writing a single line of code, right? So the steps that I've mentioned here of start with a clear goal and choose a project, right? Then research and gather information about the project and tech stack. I did all of those things, and after that, the next thing that I did was I created a flowchart. I broke it down into as small pieces as I can, and you can see in the flowchart as well how small I broke it down, right? So now once this step was completed, right? As soon as this step was completed, I was in about start working. Right, so I just had to start working. I had to begin working on the project or task. Right, so I mean, I started working on each and every piece one by one. Right, and I took those small steps and worked through each part of the process. So since I, broke it down into small steps and I was only focusing on that one step at that time without worrying about anything else that is going in my code base, uh, I was able to complete it, right? And most importantly, I wasn't afraid to make any mistakes or try new things, right? So, I mean, to be very honest, when I was building this crypto trading bot, I lost 5,000 rupees of my client, right? I mean, I had some amount for testing purposes in his Bittrex or Binance account. I don't remember, and my code has had some bug. I did a buy order and my code sold it at a loss of 5,000 rupees when it should have been 500 rupees. Right. So, I mean, I did make mistakes, and the client was pretty cool about it, thankfully. But I mean, you shouldn't be afraid to make mistakes or, try out new things. You should be daring about it, because that's the point where you'll start learning, right? So I was never afraid of making mistakes or trying out new things, and so shouldn't be you, right? A lot of people, tell me that, Bhaiya, we want to be like you and we want to learn fast and we don't want college degree and things like that. You I mean, these are the things that made me who I am, right? So, I mean, if you are, looking forward to follow on the same footsteps or things like that, then I mean, these things are something that you need to do, right? And that is the main reason why I'm creating this series, so that you start thinking like an engineer. This is a simple process, right? This learn by doing is a simple process. It's a simple process, that you know is like basics to an engineer, right? Whenever we look at any project or do whatever it is, this is the exact thing that each and every engineer does, right? All those whiteboard meetings with, different random diagrams and things like that. That is exactly this, right? We're breaking the problem down as small as we can and just focusing on that one part at that time, nothing else, right? We don't worry about what's the bigger picture and things like that. We worry about it when we are brainstorming about it, but when we are coding it, we are not worried about it. We're just worried about that small step, because we know that we have planned our entire thing picture perfectly, right? So I mean, that is something that you need to do, right? You don't have to be, afraid of making mistakes or trying out new things. And you need to, break that project down just like I did with my crypto trading bot. And you need to, then start working on those small steps, one step at a time, without worrying about all the other things that are there, right? Because eventually, as you're working on those smaller steps one at a time, you're quickly acquiring new skills, you are quickly learning new skills, right? You're doing it at a very very fast pace, and eventually, once you become, multiple times more, skillful than you are today, then eventually, you'll be able to process more things together, right? So eventually, I mean, it will become more and more easier, but in the beginning it is very important that you focus on just one part at a time, one small step at a time, nothing else, right? Eventually it is going to become easier to think about the bigger picture as well and all that stuff, but initially just one step at a time, right? As simple as that, nothing more, right? And then I mean, after completing it, obviously I used to reflect upon my learning and things like that. This is one of the reasons why, things like weekly agendas and, monthly good, bad, uglies exist in my Discord server, right? I mean, I, write my monthly good, bad, uglies every month, right? And I don't share my weekly agendas anymore because, I mean, I still have, I still have my copy to, write down all the things that I need to do, right, in a day. So I mean, I know I maintain my stuff. I don't need to, have any accountability for it in terms of sharing it in the community and things like that. But I still write my monthly good, bad, and ugly simply because I still believe in, reflecting. And I would most probably always believe in, reflecting what I do, right? Reflecting on the things that I did, what I learned, the mistakes that I made, things where I can improve, uh, all those things. So I think that this step is very important, that you reflect upon your journey. Sharing in public is one thing, right? So as soon as you learn something new, one way of reflecting is to, share it in public. Just write whatever you did and, just share it out there. Whatever you build, just share it out there, right? And just evaluate, right? Just see, what other people are doing, see what other people are, giving you feedback and things like that. So that's when seeking feedback comes as well, right? So one way of reflecting is that you learn in public, right? Share in public whatever you're learning, whatever you're building, and things like that, and then seek feedback on it. Right, whatever you've shared with the public, whatever you learned in public, and things like that, seek feedback on it. Reach out to people, reach out to communities, reach out to me, right? Right. Like I mean, if you tag me on Discord server with something, I'm definitely going to take a look at it. I mean, I mean, I don't have any as many members in my server, so I don't find it difficult to look at messages and things like that. So it's still a fresh and a good time for you to, reach out to me on Discord and show me your work, ask feedback from me and things like that. I actively give feedback to a lot of people in my community, so wouldn't mind giving more feedbacks as well. So that is something that you can do. Ask feedback from other people in the community, ask feedback on Twitter, whatever you're sharing, you're learning in public, whatever you're doing, ask feedback, take feedback, and the final step is to repeat, right? So once I completed that freelancing project, eventually I became so confident with my abilities, I would say. I mean, I finally completed a freelancing project, right? So eventually I became so uh, you know uh, confident about my entire thing that I started doing more and more projects, and these are, four reviews that are there. Then there are, you know, some reviews here as well. And more importantly, I mean, apart from that, apart from all of these things, I did more projects as well. So, I mean, not everyone gives a review. So that is one of the reasons why there are just 9 reviews. But I did way more projects than this, and yeah, so I mean, once I completed this first project, then I doing projects regularly. So this was also 5 years ago, 5 years ago, 5 years ago. So I mean, you can see that. I mean, I've spent, time struggling with all of this and doing all of this, and making myself as good as I can each and every day. My objective was to improve each and every day, and this is the basic approach. This learn by doing, the one that I've been talking about all this time. This is like the basic approach that I've taken in my entire career, right? There has never been a single technology or a single day that I've learned something but didn't implement it, or learned something first and then implemented it. I've always learned things while implementing them, right? I've never learned first and then implemented them, or I've never just learned them and not implement them. I've always learned while implementing things, and that is, one of the things that I'm going to demonstrate in this as well. So I think you get a good idea about, what learn by doing is and how you should do it and things like that. But even that is not enough. I mean, it's already a bit painful that no one talks about how to learn by doing, right? No one breaks it down like this, so it's already pretty painful. But I know that a lot of students are still not satisfied, or still might be confused that yeah, my use case is different. How do I do this? How do I do that? So I know a lot of students are still going to be there who are going to have issues and difficulties, and for that. In this series, this was the first video, so there are not going to be any more videos like this. But in this video, I told you what learn by doing is. I told you about how to learn by doing. I gave you an example of myself 5 years from now. So yeah, so I mean, taking that into consideration, I think that there is a requirement for me in giving some demonstrations, some live demonstrations about it as well, right? So for that purpose, I created a Java application on Android, right? And it's a simple contact list application, and yeah, I mean that application is completed, but I'm going to do more such demonstrations based on what you guys recommend me. So that video is going to be posted tomorrow, and in that video, I'm also going to mention how you can give me suggestions to build some other things with the same approach of learn by doing. And I'm going to exactly show you, how I build those things while learning, right? So they are more or less going to be demonstration videos, right? You're not going to learn anything out of it per se. I'm still going to explain what I'm doing and uh, all of that, but I won't be teaching anything uh, per se. But I guess those videos are still going to be important for you to watch, because my entire agenda of this series is to make you engineers, right? You should be engineers. You shouldn't be students. You shouldn't be ones who are dependent on people who, are not able to, solve your own problems. Let's say you go into a company uh, an year or two from now, and you get a task and you're stuck in that task. Then are you always going to keep nagging senior engineers and things like that, right? So I mean, you should be self independent enough to be able to learn new things, to be able to implement those things, and to be competitive with people who are at higher skill sets, who are seniors, right? So that is something that you should be able to do, and that is what an engineer is being an engineer is all about, to solve problems, right? So even the flowchart that you saw in this video, uh, that was just solving a big problem through a collection of smaller problems. Like each and every block in that flowchart was a smaller problem to the bigger problem that I was trying to solve, right? The bigger program that I was trying to create, each of that small block was a small part of that program, right? So that's what engineering is about, right? Breaking it down as small as you can, simplifying it as small as you can, making it as simple as you can, and then doing it, right? So I mean, even when you're doing DSA and things like that, a lot of people ask why DSA is important. Should I do DSA? Blah blah blah. So that DSA, makes you a problem solver, right? Even I mean, you've watched a lot of DSA tutorials. I'm sure if you're watching this video, you've watched a lot of DSA tutorials as well. A lot of people say that before writing the code, solve the problem on the paper, right? Solve the problem on the paper, right? So that does not just applies to DSA, that applies to all the things that you're building. Doesn't matter if it's a mobile application, doesn't matter if it's a web application, you need to first solve it on the paper. You first need to, define the steps, break it down as small as you can, make it as simple as you can. So the entire agenda of the series is to help you, convert from a student into that phase where you are independent enough, where you are able to do these things yourself, right? And I think that is one of the main reasons why it's still important for you to watch this series and watch these videos, because eventually, when you see me implementing that same thing again and again in different, use cases, someday I might be building a Java application, someday I might be building something with Rust, someday I might be building something with Next.js, things like that, right? So when you see me apply that same concept again and again while learning new things, while building new things and stuff like that, eventually you'll start getting a hang of how it works, and eventually it will start becoming a habit of yourself. And I mean, I think it's an understatement when I say that if you are able to absorb this entire thing, right? I think it's an understatement when I say that if you're able to absorb this entire thing, you're having a very bright career, right? No one is going to stop you, right? I mean, you're going to be unstoppable, right? So if you like, absorb this to the core, right? If you absorb this to your core, then I don't think no one can, ever compete with you or anything like that. Like, you'd be the best in what you do, and you'll enjoy what you do, right? You'll really enjoy what you do. The problem why most of the people don't enjoy engineering or enjoy, the things that they do, is simply because their approach is wrong, right? So, I mean, if you fix your approach, you're going to enjoy all of this. You can't imagine the amount of fun I used to have when I built these things, right? And you'll see the fun that I have in my next video as well, when I'll be building that Java application, and you'll see the fun that I have in that video. And yeah, so I guess that's pretty much it for this video. And this video was all about learn by doing. I explained everything I had for learn by doing. I don't have anything else to explain. I do have a lot of things to demonstrate, which I'll be demonstrating further in this series. But that was all about learn by doing. The objective of the next video was would be to build a Java-based Android application for contact list. And yeah, I mean, it's a long tutorial. It's a 4.5, 5 hour, something like that tutorial. Now, if you learned something in this video, do make sure to write a nice Twitter thread about it. Use the hashtag learning with Apoorv, right? And yeah, I think that's pretty much it for this video. I'm pretty excited for this series. I was very excited about this video, and I think the way I explained stuff and things like that, I think I did justice to what I wanted to do. I planned this video to be 30 minutes long, but here I am. I think it's been 1.5 hours, but so much worth it. I mean, I don't regret making this video this long. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Till then, peace.